All right, data visualization part 6, different shapes of data. So we're just going to look at shapes of distributions for interval ratio variables. We won't look at statistical values relevant to these. There's a couple of them that we're not going to talk about. These shapes require histograms or density plots, as the variables that we're talking about have to be interval or ratio to have a shape. Here is an example of what's typically called a normal distribution. We'll talk about the normal distribution later in the semester, but for now, when we say normal distribution, we need something that's symmetrical. That means it looks the same on both sides. Most of the scores are in the middle, and then as we spread out and spread out and spread out, we get fewer and fewer scores. So that's what normal means. You could kind of cut it in half and it would be the same on both sides. In practice, it's not going to look perfectly like that, but it's going to look something like this. Density plot does a nice job of showing this. You can see it's got the bulk is in the center, and then as we move out to the edges, we get fewer and fewer and fewer people. This is a different kind of graph. This is a graph of number of children in a household. You can see that this has a very different shape. It has a shape where most of the scores are down at the bottom, but there's scores trailing pretty far up to the top. Number of kids in the household. Least you could have is 0, and the most you could have is, in this graph, the most appeared to be about 9. This is what's commonly called a positively skewed graph. Most of the scores at the lower end, a tail going up into the higher end. And you can see with the density plot what that might look like. Here's life expectancy. You can see that this is kind of the reverse of the other one. We have most of the scores up high, but then in a few places we've got relatively low, comparatively very low scores. This is the case commonly with variables like life expectancy, where there is kind of an upper edge. You're not going to see any countries where the life expectancy is over 100 or something like that. There is an upper edge here to what the average life expectancy can be. And then there's some countries where things are really terrible and life expectancy is a lot shorter. So this is called a negative skew shape. And it looks a bit like this graph. All right, a couple of additional pieces to explore. Every week of school, the New York Times provides a graph for interpretation. You might go there, see what sort of information you're getting out of those graphs. And then on Twitter, a lot of these examples that I got of bad graphs come from at WTF Viz, which is just feeding examples of terrible graphs as they pop up.